What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. Tonight we've got two guests with us. We have the writer and the publisher of a very awesome thrill of a title called Dino Thrashers. Issue 2 will be coming out on Kickstarter on May 1st, and it's called Fire and Ice. So please welcome Noah Ray and Matt Kund, writer and publisher.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well. Happy to be here. Happy to talk some comics and talk about Dino Thrashers and whatever else comes up.
Same
Absolutely.
here. Definitely. Same here. Yeah. Excited to talk about it. Really got into the groove of that theme song there. I was like entering in, like putting me in a nice spot.
Yeah. Awesome. I did that just playing around with like the what's it called? The GarageBand little loops.
Mm-hmm.
I have some fun with that sometimes, and I like that one, and that just stuck.
Matt does the same thing. So check out our Kickstarter on May 1st just to see what the beats the beats that Matt created for our Kickstarter.
Yeah,
trailer.
the fire and ice beats that I made. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Reason enough to go find this Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you like that opening track, you're gonna love this one. Just saying. Yeah.
Which, by the way, in the description below, for those of you watching, there are links to the Kickstarter, to let's see, I think Ageless Press's Twitter and probably Instagram. There's a lot of links in the description. There's probably too many links in the description, but they're all down there. But most importantly, the Kickstarter link. So to kick it off, I guess I'll have both of you tell everyone how you got into writing comics, into publishing comics, editing comics, all of that. Just a little bit of, I guess, your origin story in comics.
Yeah, you go ahead, Matt.
Okay. Well, I probably have sort of the classic origin story, but then I also probably have like the rebirth, like the restart of the universe. I probably picked up my first comic at a drugstore off of a spinner rack, and it was probably a G.I. Joe issue in like the 50, the number, like the 50, 51 sort of issue. And it was knowing the cartoon on the show and seeing the book and picking that up and reading that. And then it was sort of like, those were the days where there was, you didn't know what was coming out. You sort of basically figured that you needed to go back to that spinner rack every 30 days and hope that next issue was there. So I built a pretty decent run of G.I. Joe, sort of branched off, got some Spider-Man books, some Captain America books. Weirdly enough, I didn't know this at the time, but I guess I was very sort of doing that whole DC versus Marvel thing early on, and like the DC books didn't really appeal to me other than maybe some, cool looking Batman covers. So it was a lot of Marvel books. But like most people, I sort of fell away from it for a while. But then later, it was sort of one day I was just sitting in my office at work, and I remember it being sort of cold and gray. And I was like, I just want to do something that was fun that I used to enjoy when I was a kid. And I was like, comic books. So I searched for, I didn't really know a lot about podcasts at the time. So I searched for, comics on there, and I just started listening, and that sort of rekindled the joy of comics, and found a comic book shop near where I work, started a pull list, and it's been going for about another 10 years. So that's sort of my origin with comics. As far as like trying to want to make them, I had a friend who told me that Omni Press was taking writer submissions. Okay. And at that point, you didn't need to have any art with it. So it was just sort of like a low, easy entry point to try to do it. So I wrote 2 pitches. They were not accepted. Then some more sort of researching. I saw the whole Kickstarter thing was gaining some movement. So I took both of those properties that I had wrote, being digital forever, and another book called The Reset. Learned a little bit about Kickstarter and ran Kickstarters for both of those. And since then, I've been trying to make comics in different forms.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Multi-Larceny, can't forget about that one on Kickstarter.
That was the Digital Forever and The Reset were the first sort of two properties that I tried to make, and so taking those to Kickstarter. But yeah, you're right. No, Multi-Larceny was in between those two.
All three great books.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for me, it's sort of similar. I think it was Spider-Man that got me into it. Like, I just love that character, still love him, everything like that. And I got like a free comic from Walmart or something like that with Spider-Man. Instantly fell in love with the storytelling. And it's sort of funny because like in high school, like I kind of got to that snob phase of like early high school, and I was just looking down on comics and things like that. And then like by the end of high school, got back into comics and realized how much I loved them through people like Frank Miller and, like Alan Moore and stuff like that. Then going through what little college I did, going back through old sketchbooks from when I was a little kid and realizing that I've been drawing comics for as long as I've been drawing. So I love drawing comics. I've always loved drawing comics. And it was sort of a nice discovery of that around the time I was about 20, 21. And shortly around that time, I was realizing I really loved comics. I wanted to draw them. I got sort of hooked up and I got kind of gypped by a bunch of people who took advantage of a guy who just loved drawing comics. So I was having a really rough time realizing that, coming out of that sort of like awful period of realizing how much I was taken advantage of. And so I was just sort of like bombing around, not knowing what I was doing. A friend of mine gave me a script to draw a comic based off of. And I worked at the local community center in this area where I live now. And one day this guy walks in with his little girl to go use the pool. And he sees me working on a comic and he's like, "Oh, you draw comics?" And he's like, I got some ideas. And it was Matt. So that's where Matt and I started off. Was just right there. Just like, like what were the chances that the guy working the front desk at the community center would be a comic artist, and one day the comic writer would walk in. And since then, Matt and I have had this creative partnership where either he's writing the comic and I'm drawing the comic. Then that evolved into us co-hosting our Constructing Comics podcast, which is I'm so proud of. Like, what we both have done is pretty amazing and like continues to be amazing for me personally. And then on top of that, like, it's evolved in different ways. So last year it was our first project. We had our first projects co-writing a comic together, not me drawing, but both of us co-writing a short comic. And then last year I got some scripts for Dino Thrashers to draw. And the writer, Mike McCarthy, who couldn't be here tonight, he sent me the scripts. I loved the characters and what they what the possibilities. I was like, these are characters I would love to draw. But I never worked with Mike before. And I wanted to draw the characters, but I also wanted that like security, So I was like, let me bring in my friend Matt, who's done Kickstarters and wants to be like, get his hands, wants to sort of like get into the publishing end of things too. Let me pitch this to him as him being a publisher and sort of the Kickstarter runner. And that was another evolution of our partnership as well. So Matt acting as the publisher in that area, and, me as the artist, and, a lot of the success of the first Kickstarter for Dino Thrashers is all because of Matt's huge input, diligent promoting, making sure that the rewards that of course I got my stuff done on time, that Alfred the colorist got his stuff in on time, making sure that all of us got paid, and then making sure that the rewards got shipped out in a good time. And I'm pretty proud that of Matt being a part of it, because for a Kickstarter, we got our rewards out within 5 months of when it started, that's pretty good for a Kickstarter. That's all due to Matt. So I love our partnership. Excited that we keep doing it. It's been a great ride. So that's my origin story. Yeah.
It's awesome that you guys just by chance met and that kicked off all of this for you guys.
Yeah, I was like Noah said, I came in to use the pool. I was going to sign us in, and he had sort of the I think it was probably like a full size 11 by 17 board, sort of like propped up. And I was like, "Hey, what are you doing back there?" And I think he gave me. We talked for roughly maybe 2-3 minutes because I had the kids and they were excited to get to the pool. He gave me a card. I followed everybody, I followed you on Instagram, and then we talked about working together, and we decided to start small. And we did this 5-page story called Our Extinction, which is basically a zombie story, but it was sort of like what would happen if like Big Pharma could profit off of zombies, and it sort of has a twist ending. So that was the first thing we did, because we wanted to start off sort of small and try to figure out our process. And since then, it's sort of grown from, 5 pagers to 8 pagers, and with stories together for anthologies that were sometimes 8 to 10, and then with Dino Thrashers we went full on single issue, 23 pages. So just sort of building it up from there. And there's probably not a day that goes by where Noah and I don't text something about some sort of story element or some sort of art that we saw that we're really into. So it's just every day, and it's just sort of building from there. And we get along really well. And I think one thing that was really good with Dino Thrashers is that I didn't really have to vet it that much when it was proposed to me, because Noah had already sort of vetted it, and I knew that we had a lot of the same sensibilities, and he could tell if the script wasn't going to work. So coming to me, it was sort of like a really easy, yes, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah. And it was also kind of fortuitous because Matt's a huge G.I. Joe guy. He kind of got me into G.I. Joe comics through the podcast where we talked about a couple of those classic Marvel G.I. Joe books. Mm-hmm. So early last year, we had been talking about possibly I had some ideas for something along the lines of a G.I. Joe book. And then the Dino Thrashers script came in, and that had so many G.I. Joe elements. And I was just this is it right here, And so it kind of landed in our laps. This was something that both Matt and I wanted to work on. So it was let's run with this. And I love drawing it. I'm really proud of it. It was a great ride. And I think issue 2 is going to be about the same.
Yeah. For those that are watching, if you haven't seen, I did a review on Dino Thrashers #1. So find that on the channel after this and see what it's about. But Noah, if you want to give your own description of what Dino Thrashers is about for everyone watching.
Yeah, your review nailed it. I loved how you started it off with a group of paleontologists out in the desert, unspecified desert, as I love it. Nothing's very specified in the book, but it's just sort of fun in that way. But group of paleontologists out there in the desert looking for dinosaur bones, and they come across this transmitter of sorts that they think is an egg at first, but it's this ancient technology. And they accidentally activate the ancient technology, and what it does is it summons these interstellar, this interstellar super squad of humanoid dinosaurs from outer space. And they come to this planet and realize that there's another group of interstellar super squad of dinosaurs, but they're evil. Mm-hmm. And so the Dino Thrashers, the good dinosaurs, decide to recruit the paleontologists in this ongoing war with these evil dinosaurs, the pterosaurs. And that's the gist of the book is you've got you got good guys versus bad guys, and the humans who started out in between are now joining the side of the good guys to help fight the bad guys. And issue 2 is just sort of continuing where we left off. Issue 1 sort of ends on this cliffhanger of this is just the start of the war. A lot of issue 1 isn't boring setup, but it's definitely setup of the characters and the world that they inhabit and what's at stake. And then issue 2 is just, where we go from there. How does the war proceed from here on out? It's not like an all out war. We have some fun things starting off in this issue. First 5 pages that'll be up on the Kickstarter will be all about the Dino Thrashers sending in 2 of the paleontologists to infiltrate the pterosaur's base. So you'll see a preview of that. So that's where the issue 2 is going. And then it'll eventually, of course, like issue 1, explode into more and more action as the issue progresses. And Mike was very excited about this issue. He was like, hey, put in the work for issue 1, next couple issues are just going to be all action. And I'm trying to bring that myself too, where it's like, just, even pages that like, are just people talking, to just try to pack as much excitement into them as possible. So of course, because, obviously if I'm getting bored drawing it, that means people reading it might be getting bored too. So I'm trying to keep that excitement, that action going, so that people will come back and not feel like, oh, we're getting more of the same,
Yeah, and I thought in issue 1 you did a good job with the action sequences that did occur, and I think that's just setting up, what we could be looking forward to in issue 2 right there.
Oh, thanks. That means a lot. And a lot of the action, how we got it to work was Alfred, my colorist. He's phenomenal. And you have in the background of this stream right now, that's his cover, variant cover for issue 2. Like, he's brilliant. So like there was like, when we got to the action scenes, like I knew that like less was more on my side, because Alfred just, knows how to bring it just like that. He knows how to bring it color wise and stuff like that. So that was like, it wasn't the easiest part, but it was definitely the most fun, where I was just like, I know what Alfred's going to do with this, and it's going to be awesome. And so I got to give it to him for making those last couple pages land.
So we have a question in the chat of how can they get issue 1? Will that be an option in the Kickstarter for issue 2?
Yeah, Matt. Matt's in charge of the rewards, and there's a catch-up tier, right, Matt?
Yeah, we're going to offer both 1 and 2 physically and digitally in this campaign. So if you weren't able to get in on 1, we are going to offer you ways to catch up in the Kickstarter for Fire and Ice. And
are we doing all the variants for issue 1, or is it just one specific variant?
No, you can get all 3 covers to issue 1. If you decide that you want to just get 1, that's an option. Or if you decide that you're a completist and you love to sort of collect all covers, you can choose that as well. And we have awesome covers on 1. We have one by Wilson Gandolfo, who does the Paranormal Hitman book for Behemoth. We have another one that was done by Travis Wells, who's going to have something from Ageless pretty soon. And then we also had one that was done by Leonard Wu, who's an actor. He's been in a couple of TV shows, and I also believe he was in Alita: Battle Angel. So he did an issue. He did a cover for us as well. So we have 3. We have 3 in issue 1. We're going to have another 3 in issue 2, and 2 of those are already completed. We have one by Ian Ashcroft. He's a really awesome artist out of England, and then the one that we showed, the Alfred cover, and then the third one is being drawn right now, and that one's going to be awesome. And I think it's if you like 80s stuff and you like Transformers, you're gonna like that one.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited about all 3. Like, Ian's one of my favorite artists, and just so when he agreed to do a cover, it was like a dream come true. And then Alfred is a guy who obviously I love working with, but when he and I were introduced years ago, I like checked out his stuff immediately, and I was like, well, why isn't this guy just drawing the comic? That kind of thing. Like, so I was an instant fan of his work too. So I was so excited when he was like, yeah, I'll do a cover. And yeah, I'm so excited for the covers on this one. I was excited about the covers on the first one too, because Wilson knocked it out of the park with his. Travis, who actually like lived down the road from me at the time, it was great because like I went and I picked up the original art for that cover and then took it home and scanned it, that kind of thing. And I was like, this is awesome. And then of course Leonard's cover, well, like was cool in the ink stage, but then Airtan Seahan colored it, did like an awesome job, just made it pop even more. And then he did the same. Airtan did the same with Travis's cover. Like Airtan was just knocking out of the park on all three covers because he colored Wilson's cover as well.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
So Airtan brought it on the last issue with all the covers, and it's kind of the thing is that like with the three on this time, each artist has colored their own stuff. So like we're gonna have to find a way to get Airtan involved in some way on this campaign.
Yeah,
because we need him. Yeah.
Gotta get him on his own cover then.
Ertan is doing he does the line art and the colors on those backups in Paranormal Hitman. He's the artist of those. Okay. So he did the cover. Yeah. He did the color on all three of the first. And yeah, we'll figure out a way, because that's another thing we like to do is like and this worked out really well in the first issue. Is a number of the artists that I've worked with on different projects were like, hey, do you want to take a stab at one of these characters and just put your own spin on it? So we've had, of course, Wilson did the covers. We had sketches by like Kevin Zimmerman, who I did the reset with, or Oracle, who I did multi-larceny. So we like to keep it with the people that we worked with in the past, and have them take different stabs at things. And also, like, Noah's found that like when we have these people take these different take their own sort of design of these characters, looking at the character designs, they put little tweaks, and Noah's gone, oh, I really like that, and he adds it into their uniform or their tech or stuff like that. So it's sort of been a bit of an idea farm for Noah as well.
Yeah, definitely. Specifically, Kevin Zimmerman last year did this pinup of Brax, the Brachiosaurus pterosaur. And in the script, like the character description, he has like a boom box, right? And my initial character, no, he didn't have a boom box in the character description. That was just something Kevin added, was him carrying this boom box. And I was like, oh, what if it was like an actual like boom box? So it was like it's a boom box with like a commando style multi like rocket launcher thing on top of it. So those are the Dino Thrashers there, which but that's also interesting too, because I had drawn that splash before the guys had done their artwork yet, but like Wilson came in and drew Tor, and I was like the main Velociraptor character in the center there. And I was like, he drew his gun, and I was like, oh, that's how I'm going to draw the gun from here on out, that kind of thing. So that was another thing there too. So I was like, yeah, I hadn't shown him holding his guns yet or anything like that, but like Wilson drew it so cool, and I was like, yeah, I got to borrow that. And Kevin's boombox. A lot of cool stuff there with people bringing stuff. Then recently Ian Ashcroft drew Tigrella, who was on that last one. She's the saber-toothed tiger down there in the I guess right hand corner. Yeah, and he used a design that I was about to throw away, but he like reinvigorated my like the design that was used. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I will use that design. So thank you, Ian. It was great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think I didn't have an image of the pterosaurs, or I'd throw that up there too. But let
me see. I think I can share. I'll pull it up if you guys want to keep talking.
Yeah. I think I love the characters, and I love. So like I don't remember if I said this in my review, or if I said it in the tweet that I sent out when I posted the review, but I got these like Transformers, like Autobots versus Decepticons vibes, right? Because the Autobots showed up, and then the Decepticons showed up. So I feel like Transformers fans, minus the whole transforming part, would like the vibe, kind of nostalgia kind of vibe from that. But having the leader, we have Tor on the Dino Thrashers, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Julius Rex for the pterosaurs.
Yeah. I got a picture of him pulled up. Let me try to share my screen. Here, share screen.
Yeah, so like the nostalgia bit, I know like Mike watches like a lot of old cartoons when he's writing to sort of get into the mindset of all of that sort of, you know, cool Transformers,
Yeah.
Thundercat stuff. So
You guys see that right there?
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. They're the pterosaurs right there. That's Julius Rex right there in the center. And there's Brax with his boom box. And very, like I said, that's all Kevin's doing. And then, of course, Alfred just making it look cool with his colors. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the character design of all of them and the names, I think, fit all of them very well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's all Mike. You know, Mike's like, this is all his idea, obviously, but he's the one that comes up with like the crazy throwback dialogue, So you get like the quippiness that you would get out of like TMNT or Transformers from Mike, and of course all their names are all from Mike.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's funny is I actually had I had a question that was going to come up about, the characters' personalities are, they all got these very unique personalities, but it seems like there was some influence from like Transformers and TMNT were actually the two examples I had. So it's funny you brought up TMNT also.
And I can share a little bit of insight of that. And this is something Mike's shared with me and he's shared on other interviews as well, is that Mike, when he wrote the scripts, he would have old cartoons playing on in the background for dialogue inspiration. And I wouldn't be able to work that way because
Just be watching the whole time.
I'd just be watching. I'd be like, especially writing that kind of thing. Like I can't write and have like that on in the background, but you could definitely feel that in these issues is that you could tell that Mike has a deep love for those kinds of things. And that shines through most of all in the dialogue.
Which I think is a good reason for people to check out the comic because there's a lot of people out there in the community that are big fans of that 90s TMNT or earlier than that too, like Transformers and all that. Like it's that, and I wasn't even a big fan of that stuff back then, but I still got those vibes, and something that I loved about it.
And it's something we talked about a couple nights ago too. What, and Matt brought this up, is that like it's sort of timeless in a way, and we're sort of at that. It's timeless in a way of just sort of like this book feels very tongue in cheek at times, with how like campy it can be with the dialogue. But also it's something like it's kind of timeless for like kids, and Matt's got a great insight into this. But for me, growing up, I'm not in the same generation as Mike, but I did grow up on reruns of those cartoons,
Mm-hmm.
And I loved them just as much as I'm sure kids in the 80s did, like I like, those like Fox, like superhero shows like Spider-Man and X-Men and things like that. Like those rocked my world. So there's obviously, and then we're obviously in that like nostalgia cycle of like the 80s and 90s. So it, and Matt's got better insights into it than I do.
Yeah, I mean, just when we finished one, we shared it with a couple of folks for pull quotes and a couple of folks that we had relationships with that, were making comics just to sort of get some reviews. And, what we were finding was, folks that were a bit older that would have grown up with those cartoons, they enjoyed it because of that. And then, my son read it, who's 13, and he read it because it was, just a fun book of, dinosaurs doing cool stuff. And then I was at a signing with Brett Murphy for Paranormal Hitman, and his kids are a little bit younger. They're in about the 5 to 6 age range. And Brett's son came over and he was like, "Hey, what's that?" Because he just sees a cool dinosaur on the cover. And so, I gave him a couple of copies, and I felt perfectly safe giving it to a 6-year-old because, there's comic book fighting in it, right? But there was nothing that he shouldn't see or that he probably isn't already exposed to with like a, a regularly scheduled network cartoons. So like it's got that appeal from like 6 to mid to late 40s. Like everybody can sort of enjoy it for different reasons.
And then there's
Absolutely.
like my 6-year-old mother who picked it up and just had a laugh riot because she just thought it was silly, So like, I guess it's like 6 to 60. Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
that's already
Yeah. Expand the demographics.
yeah.
Yeah, we're not going after that 18 to 35 age group. We're going, we really broad, 6 to 60.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So I got a couple other questions, kind of general ones for you guys, and one in particular for the comic. We've got our 2 teams. In this next issue, are we going to have other dinosaurs coming in, or is it kind of like that portal opened once and then that's like got our set teams now that are going to be fighting over the Earth?
It's just the 2 teams this time, but I was talking about it a couple nights ago, and it's sort of like with the first issue, there were things I had to leave out because Mike was just sort of like just throwing. How he sort of writes is he just throws everything at the wall. Like that's his scripts is just like overcrowded, and he gives me free reign to sort of condense it down to like what will fit on a page, basically. So there were a lot of things left out of the first issue, and it's kind of like how I think I kind of like to describe it as like Mike wanted like 2 years worth of like action figures in like one issue, that kind of thing. But like I kind of wanted to pare it down to just the action figures you see on the back of the box, that kind of stuff. So like this series of action figures is just what you get in this issue. And with this issue, it's sort of the same method. So like, it's this take on these, like, like this set of action figures, right? Same as the first issue. So like different variants, but like what will be new, what will be the additions will be like the vehicles and stuff like that. So, and on the preview images on Saturday, when you look at them, issue on page 4, we get the introduction of one of my new favorite characters, which is a vehicle. And it's this 1968 red Mustang. And right now, when you'll see it, it's just in its regular form. But when you get the issue, it's going to get souped up Dino Thrashers style. And like, that's something I'm really looking forward to drawing and showing everyone. And you'll get stuff like that. Like I just did a page with redoing just a little bit, redoing the Pterosaurus hover bikes, stuff like that. So those are the additions. As far as like key players go, are mostly vehicles related stuff.
So they get some souped up rides is what I'm hearing, and it sounds like that's gonna make things interesting with the action.
I think so. I definitely think so. I don't want to, like on the last issue, and this is just part of the reality of like, as like this isn't our full-time jobs, right? Like this is our sort of like hobby time, So I don't have as much time as I would like to sit down and take a lot of time to design vehicles and characters and stuff like that. Yeah. I had some time, but not enough. So a lot of it I had to do like, just like a couple of sketches and then draw it on the page. And, but what's sort of nice with this second issue is sort of like being like looking back at that first issue and being like, okay, how can I enjoy drawing this more next time around? That kind of thing. And, I enjoyed drawing it the first time, but like challenging myself to draw it like a little more enjoyably to look at, and
take it to the next level.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's, I'm really excited to just get back to drawing vehicles. Like I never thought I would say that because I hated drawing vehicles for the longest times. So this is great. This is a good book for that.
Yeah, and I've seen the unsouped up version of the Mustang so far, and that's pretty impressive. So I'm excited to see when the pages roll in and I get to see the souped up version.
Yeah, it's Mike's calling the souped up version sort of horsepower. It's mammoth power. That's what it is. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man. So in terms of your drawing style, what would you say? Who would you say your biggest influences in that?
I think like, I grew up looking at like Ditko, because of Spider-Man. And then I loved, just because of how to draw comics the Marvel way, I love John Buscema.
Hmm.
And then in high school, who I really gravitated towards because I was one of those edgy teenagers, I was like Frank Miller's, my boy. And but then I discovered like Steve McNiven and like all his crazy cross hatching and things like that, and I love
Okay.
that. And
Yeah.
I really love that. And I'm not saying like I ape his style or really try to go for his style a lot, but he's definitely one of those artists that I love. And like when I met him, I think almost about 4 years ago, I was like, first question was about cross hatching because like I love all the lines he puts down on his pages. So, and I like doing that too. So I'd say like, yeah, like, the classics like Ditko, Frank Miller, McNiven, those guys are, yeah, I love them. And yeah, and then of course like the crazier ones, like, I love Jim Lee and McFarlane and all those guys who just decided that like one day they were like, why don't we just kill ourselves while we draw, that kind of thing. And yeah, love that over detail on everything that they do. Yeah.
So speaking of Frank Miller, if you had the opportunity, would you draw Daredevil?
Yeah, Matt's got some Daredevil ideas that I like. So yeah, I totally would. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to draw Daredevil. I kind of like I'm interested because you're a collector.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think if you did a comic where like you gave Daredevil, well, I don't know. I think Daredevil is probably like the most interesting Batman variant, basically. That's what I think. Like of all the characters that are sort of like in the vein of Batman, I think Daredevil is the most interesting. And I would say almost like if Batman hadn't come first, Daredevil might be like the more interesting dark superhero. That's my opinion. I'm interested if you guys sort of share that opinion too. Yeah. Not that I don't like I love Daredevil more than Batman, but it's just sort of a thought I've had,
Yeah, I mean he's Batman minus all the gadgets.
Yeah.
He is the more, honestly, between them, he's probably the gritty, like, I just got myself and maybe some things to throw. That's about it, right?
I was gonna say maybe I was gonna say he's Batman without the millionaire status. He's sort of like he's got a little bit of that Parker luck and that trying to keep things together like Peter Parker, but very much they both like to stand on top of buildings looking down in the middle of the night brooding and so they do have that in common.
We even have a cover of them doing it together too.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you as a collector, what got you into collecting? Like, what were the comics and stuff like that got you into it? And what sparked your love of comics?
So it was actually Spider-Man was what got me interested in comics, but I didn't read comics really until it had been 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. And it was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. They had a comic. I don't know if they advertised it during the show or something. So that was actually the first comic I picked up was the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic.
Huh.
And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And then they had the Secret Wars event right around that time. And so everything was ending because of Secret Wars in Marvel and then, restarting. So I hopped on with a lot of new things starting there. But Spider-Man was always like my main Marvel character. And then it took a little while. At the beginning, everyone's like, oh, I know Marvel, I know DC. But then I started finding some indie titles and I was like, oh, this is good. And I started, branching into Image Comics. And then probably over the last 2 years, my pool list has shifted so much from Marvel mainly to indie, like just all indie with like 5 Marvel titles and 1 DC title, which is Batman. Which honestly, I'm reading Batman not because of Batman, but because of James Tynion writing it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you're a Tynion fan because I can see behind you got some Something's Killing the Children.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a fan.
Some Department of Truth over here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, I do like his writing style and his character creation and all of that. So I've been kind of reading anything that he's been putting out. I think he's doing another like horror title with DC now too, which is interesting that they're going into almost like their own indie line, right, with the horror.
Yeah. So because he had his like magazine that he released last year, right? Like was like a horror. Yeah. That's great. DC is sort of making some good choices in that area of like supporting creators like that. Yeah.
Oh, was it Oblivion Song what got you into comics, Rod?
Oh, nice. That was interesting because I just listened to an interview with Frank Miller and Robert Kirkman on Collider, which is really great. Everyone should check it out. And Frank Miller asked like Robert Kirkman, like, how do you come up with your ideas? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Kirkman was like, he's like, I just sort of like, he sort of like thinks about like what could have been and then writes a story about it. So he was like, man, what if Jack Kirby wrote Batman? And that's where Oblivion Song came into it.
Oh, that's probably why he's bringing that up then. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to get the context on that.
Yeah.
Okay, Flash 2016 when he got back into comic.
Nice. Josh Williamson probably then, right? Flash 2016. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But oh, go ahead.
I was going to say Matt is sort of like your influences as far as like writing goes sort of lines up with the Secret Wars element too. Like, did you discover Hickman like shortly after you got back into comics, Matt, or what was the timeline there? Because that's like I'm sorry, I'm spoiling the answer for your question, but that's sort of like your big influence is Hickman.
Yeah. So I remember the G4 when they were still around. I think they're coming back. They had a segment where Blair Butler would come out and talk about like new releases, and I was sort of thinking about getting back in the comics, and she was talking about Pax Romano, and I really liked that idea, and I think I ordered it, had it shipped to my house, and read it, and that was one of the first books. But yeah, the sort of the things that Hickman was doing with storytelling and sort of the high concept sci-fi stories, have been an influence because a lot of the stuff that I write individually sort of has that sort of high concept sort of sci-fi feel. I mean, I did Digital Forever, which was sort of like about a design simulated afterlife. Multi-Larceny was guys using the multiverse to rob banks. And then the Reset was, I was thinking like, what happens if you could time travel, but everybody had to time travel to the same spot and they all sort of had to agree to it, and one guy wielded like all of the power to reset you back into a certain point of time. So yeah, Jonathan Hickman has been a really big influence on sort of like the idea generation, and now I'm really working on not being so much of like the concept writer, but being the concept writer and sort of developing characters that you can follow and get into, because it's very easily, you can come up with a cool concept. Like if you look at Oblivion Song, there's this tear and these creatures are coming through, out of this other dimension, and people are going from our dimension in there, and that could be really cool. But there's sort of there's the aspect where there's the twin brothers, and the one wants to be on the one side and the other one wants them to come back. So like you do have this cool concept, but you also sort of have this family dynamic. So that's another thing that I'm working on in my writing, is to like have the cool concept, but also have the characters that you want to follow, and the sort of the concept is just sort of there in the background, sort of making it cool, but you like, you're invested in these characters. You want to follow these characters. So
awesome. There's a friend on YouTube here, K Titus. He lives in Japan and he works with some kids with cancer. I guess they're watching right now from the hospital. So konnichiwa, Japan.
Konnichiwa. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really awesome. Man, that's great that you have such like a loyal fan base. I've been watching the chat and they're like asking you how you're doing and stuff like that. Like that's awesome.
The YouTube and Instagram comic community is just amazing. And all these people have great channels themselves too. The guy who's commenting a lot, Just a Rican, in his comics, he has a great channel. He'll shout out other channels all the time, and grow the community.
I'll just pose this. If King Titus wants to get in touch with us somehow, if we could send a couple of copies of Dino Thrashers to that hospital, we would be perfectly willing to do that. And like we said earlier, the content is something that children could read. So we would totally be on board if King Titus wants to contact us to send a couple of issues to that hospital for kids to have.
Yeah, totally.
Ken, Matt's I think Instagram and Twitter are in the link in the description down below. So send him a message. I don't think his name on Instagram is K Titus, but
okay.
I was on another channel and we were doing a giveaway and he won that, and he said that he took the comic that he won and he went to the hospital and read it to the kids there. So he's a great guy.
You're doing good work on top of good work, Ken. Good job. Good job. Yeah. You're my hero.
So as far as with Ageless Press, this is the first title that Ageless did, or was there a title before Dino Thrashers?
No. Dino Thrashers was our first endeavor as Ageless Press. To be honest with you, pre-March 2020, we had some pretty big ideas, but then, the reality of the world, March, we just sort of slowed things down, and we're like, let's concentrate on Dino Thrashers. We did that. The reception was good. We delivered on that. And we're going back with 2, and Noah actually brought the second property that we're going to develop to Ageless as well. That is not as far along as Dino Thrashers, but we will be offering another title very soon, and I'm excited for that one. We've talked about the appeal of Dino Thrashers for kids. But I think the second one really is going to appeal to kids. It's very much in that Bone, Secret of Nim, Mouse Guard sort of feel. Okay. So yeah, that's something we're working on, and we'll probably be able to announce that soon. A lot of the behind the scenes, contracts and negotiations and setup has been done, but we're going to hold off on saying what that is, but there is more to come.
And that's the property that Matt mentioned earlier by Travis Wells, who did the initial variant on the first Dino Thrashers cover.
Okay.
The art I've been seeing for it, Travis and I are good friends and talk pretty regularly. He's been sending me pages for this next project, and it's going to be something worth checking out. And that's an understatement. It's totally going to be worth something.
Yeah, he's got a really awesome style. It's markers, right, Noah? But it looks like it's painted. So
wow.
It looks really amazing.
Yeah, how fast he works and how good his art is just inspiring. And he keeps me on task with my work. Like he's just like you know, he's next level. Like that's the thing. Like he's really good, and
awesome.
Yeah, really looking forward to sharing that with everyone on Kickstarter.
I was gonna say, so I assume it'll go through the Kickstarter route as well when that.
Yeah, I think the plan for Ageless for a little while is going to be to do our properties through Kickstarter, with the hopes of, as we grow, maybe building enough presence that we can have a small appearance in previews. But right now it's a lot of, these are gonna be crowdfunded. We're gonna, get these out to the backers. But we do envision larger things to come. But right now it's sort of incremental. It's like, hey, let's do this. Let's build a little bit of momentum, show people that we're serious about these things, have a couple of things under our belt, because then also, like, as we grow and maybe we get a little bit bigger, we're figuring things out, like working with the printers, finding folks that we can deliver books, is crowdfunding and delivering. Hopefully, as things get back to normal, we're going to try to hit some cons and hand sell books. But right now, it's going to be crowdfunding and hand selling books at cons in the near future, with hopes of bigger things.
Speaking of cons, do you have any that you're planning on yet, like fall time? Because I know there's a lot of them that are starting to kind of say, no, we're for sure doing something.
So for me, probably the one that I'm going to go to first is going to be Awesome Con in Washington, D.C. That's scheduled for like the August time frame. I'll be fully vaccinated by that time. And I hope that, everybody will still be practicing as much safety as possible, wearing masks. We're all going to have to act differently at cons. We're not going to be shaking hands and stuff like that. But yeah, Awesome Con, Baltimore Comic Con, if that sort of goes on, because that's usually in the September timeframe, so there'll be a little bit more time for that. And then it won't be this year, but Heroes Con 2022. Heroes Con is a favorite show for Noah and I. That's in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's like a really small, mid-sized southern city. Everybody sort of clears out of town on the weekend, and like all the people that are into comics like roll in and basically have run of the town for 3 to 4 days, and it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
There's a huge art auction, and the show is really about comics and art. The bigger shows that you have, like in your Washington D.C.'s or your New York, there'll be sort of comics and media, but Heroes Con is really like for the love of art and comics. So you can just spend. It's not the big show, but you can just spend 3 days just going around and just being amazed at all the stuff that you see. And it's a big con for creators to go to, because I think also just the laid backness of it, they go just to sort of enjoy themselves and catch up with each other. So Heroes Con, Baltimore, Awesome Con, East Coast stuff right now, and again, maybe as we expand a little bit, we'll push a little bit further west. I know Noah has desires to get to Emerald City Comic Con someday, so maybe that's on the list.
Yeah, I'm following that yellow brick road, just going for it. That's my goal.
Yeah, actually, Baltimore might be on a list of something that I go to. So
definitely,
awesome. We'll have to meet up.
Yeah,
it's the well, I think I would say like Heroes Con and Baltimore are the two cons where I've been like, these are the ultimate like long box diving conventions, basically. So, but Heroes especially because I went with Matt and we spent a lot of time long box diving. So
that's what I want to go. conventions for is like the comics and the art and the creators and that kind of thing, not so much the media side of things and all that.
Yeah, with Baltimore, you have the why am I drawing a blank? Is it the Harvey Awards?
Ringo.
Ringo Awards, yeah. So you'll have a lot of creators at that show because hopefully they're nominated or they're there to support friends. And then Heroes Con, you get a lot of creators as well because they have the auction that's for the Hero Initiative to sort of support some of the older artists who, unfortunately, if you worked as a freelancer for a lot of your life, you might not have the best sort of medical care later in life. So there's a big auction there, and you could sit down, and Scotty Young can walk in and sit down next to you, which is pretty amazing. So yeah, Heroes Con and Baltimore Con are cool for those two reasons.
Awesome. Yeah, I've only actually been to one con before. That was Tampa Bay Comic Con 2016 or 2017. And now that I'm like really into like doing things like this and talking to people, and I'm like, I want to go to cons, and now we don't have any.
Yeah.
And then my co-host on this, Caroline, she got into comics during all of this, during the pandemic. So she's never been to any cons.
Yeah, when I first started going back to cons, I was sort of trying to figure out what they were all about. And I used to be the guy that was going through the long box and finding the issue of G.I. Joe that I needed to sort of complete a run, which I still like to do. But now it's just sort of like going to Artist Alley and finding, people that are much in the vein of Noah and myself and Mike and Brett, the folks that have that table, at Artist Alley, and they have the really cool book. Noah and I also like SPX, which is Small Press Expo, which is in Maryland here. And, you'll have a lot of folks there that are just there because they love making comics, and you can find some really, really cool stuff there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's great about your co-host getting into comics for the pandemic. That might be like, that's awesome. Did you like Tampa convention? Do you recommend it?
It was good. I felt like at the time I didn't know really, what to do at a con either. So I think, being the first time, and I wasn't there with like a group of, like-minded people either. I feel like with that, I went and I was like, oh, well, I met, I had the person, I'm blanking on her name, but she played the Negasonic Teenage Warhead, sign a pop from that. And I went through the artists area a little bit, but now that I've, kind of been looking more into this side of things, I feel like you guys are talking about, I want to go down Artist Alley and look for like those books and that kind of thing. It's like cool things that you don't even think about necessarily. It's just kind of more of a I don't even want to say, I guess more of like, I was more of a, Marvel kind of person and not looking for those indie comics to read. And so I think where I am with my collecting and all that now, I think I'd have way more fun going to that con and going to the artists area and all that.
Yeah, it's heaven. Like I always tell heaven for me. Yeah, Matt texted me after us going to Heroes the first time. So we came back like on a Sunday night, and like Monday morning we were both back at our desks, and that was like, Matt sent me a text and was just like, I want to be at a convention so bad right now.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't want to be back in the real world sitting in a cubicle doing spreadsheets. I wanted to be back at Heroes Con.
Yeah. But that eclipses sort of like just how good it feels if you love comics and you love creators. It's just perfect. It's a perfect place.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of the hour here. Anything else upcoming with the book that you want to tell us, or planned length overall of the book with Dino Thrashers?
I'll cover my side of the campaign. So I'm doing some giveaways as the campaign goes along, that aren't like included in the tiers. So Matt will tell you about like the tiers and like what rewards we're going to give. But for me personally, if you want to give me a follow on social media, I'm at Noah C. Ray, no spaces, no caps, just, Noah C. Ray. And if you follow, of course, like, the Dino Thrashers Instagram as well, they usually repost stuff from my stories. And I'm offering, so like for the first 5 backers on the Kickstarter, I'm going to do like 5, like for each person, do like their choice of a comic book character on like a 9x12 sheet of paper, free of charge, that'll be sent with their books when everything gets shipped out. And then along the way, I'll be doing giveaways like that, whether it's like the 25th backer, 50th backer, 75th backer, 100 backers if we get there, that kind of thing, just sort of be doing those like 9x12 drawing giveaways as we go through. And I'll be announcing that on my Instagram as we go. So that's all I have to say as far as like the campaign goes. And besides, just check it out. I'm having fun drawing it. I really hope that translates to people reading it as well. So yeah, that's all I'll say about the book.
Yeah, so we launch May 1st. We're running all of May 1st through May 31st. We're going to launch about noon East Coast. So if you want to be quick on the trigger for those first 5 for Noah, maybe set an alarm for 5 minutes before noon. But so we're doing 31 days, all of May. We're also, Noah didn't mention this, but he is going to do sketch covers on this campaign. We're going to have a limited number of sketch covers. They'll have the thick cardstock on the outside, and he'll do a character of your choice. Can be, if you want Daredevil, it could be Daredevil, or if you want one of the Dino Thrashers, you can do that. So you can have sort of a one-of-a-kind, art piece. His pages are going to be available. A certain number of his pages are going to be available. So if you're a art collector, you can get that. He's going to do sketch cards as an add-on. But we're going to have single issues in print. We're going to have collections in print. We're going to have PDFs digitally. We tried to price everything really to make it as competitive with a Big 2 comic book as well. They're roughly $5 to buy. I've seen a lot of people, and if this is what they want to do, this is what they want to do. I can't fault that for that. But a lot of times I'll see like a $10 book on Kickstarter, and it's like, so we tried to price them really reasonable to compete with something you might get at a shop. So $5 with about $3 shipping, so you can get a book for about $8. Nice. You can also get PDFs really cheap, $2 to $3 for a PDF if you want to just have it delivered straight to your inbox and read it on your your favorite device, your phone, your tablet, or whatever. So yeah, and it's just we're going to be spreading the word, and it's a really fun book. I don't know if we covered this, but I think you asked for sort of like what the plan for Dino Thrashers in general is. I think we're anticipating a 12 issue sort of run that'll probably take us 4 to 5 years to get through if we can do 1-2 books a year. But that's the plan. But each book, we're going to continue to grow. So 2 years from now, if we're doing 5, we're going to do that same model where we're on 5, but you can do 1. You can come in if you've been with us the whole way. You can come in, or if you're just finding out about us, you can come in and do 1 through 5. So we're just going to keep growing each time. So
yeah, awesome. Each book is it's a very simple story, like we talked about earlier. You don't need to be caught up on the first issue to read the second issue. It's a very it's just a book that's just focused on fun, good old clean action. We want that experience that Matt talked about at the beginning where he picked up G.I. Joe issue 50 and could just enjoy it. That's sort of what Dino Thrashers is, what number you pick it up at.
Yeah. And for those that are watching live, I'm dropping the link. It's in the description as well, but here's the link to the Kickstarter. So you can go there and you can click the save button, and it'll remind you when it goes live on Saturday. Or like Matt said, set your alarm for 5 minutes before and try to snag one of those free sketches, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Ninjak. I'm gonna have to put that on my two read list. That my ever growing to read list.
I got that. Well, I might have that still. That is a really good read. I can loan it to you, Matt, if you don't want to give Valiant money.
We'll see. Maybe I'll do a sample and then go out and get my own copies. That's been known to happen. You gave me what was Philip's book, the Warlords of Appalachia, and I ended up having to get my own copy of that as well. So sometimes that works. The loaning somebody a copy works because they have to go out and get their own. So
totally. It's how you get people hooked on different comics.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or podcasts or videos.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on, talking about Dino Thrashers, talking about collecting comics and everything. I got some of the links below. I need to probably add a couple more links down below where to find you guys. Anything else you guys want to plug, like the podcast or anything like that? Feel free.
Sure. Noah and I do a podcast called Constructing Comics. It started off as a sort of page design, page review podcast, but since then it's sort of evolved into a interview show, and we have a lot of indie creators, folks that are running Kickstarters, or folks who might have a book with, say, a Behemoth or a Source Point Press, that really need those eyes on their book because they're in previews, but unfortunately the way previews works is if you're not, maybe if you're in the back of the book, you don't get as much attention as, the big publishers. So we like to have a lot of those folks come on and talk about their books to sort of help those folks out. And then Noah and I, we will do a sort of a deep review on books that we're really enjoying, like the Rorschach book, or we're going to do Beta Ray Bill here pretty soon from Daniel Warren Johnson. So it's a mix of stuff. So if you're really in the process as well for making comics, check it out, because Noah with his art background will ask questions about like how the artists are doing things, and I as the writer will like to try to ask questions about like telling stories and forming ideas and stuff like that. So we have a good balance that way.
Very nice.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks everybody hanging out with us in the chat, and anybody watching this later on, on the replay. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys again for coming on.
Thank you. This really helps
everyone.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining in. It was really fun.
I had a good time too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Have a nice night, everybody.
Night. Thanks again.